The Subaru WRX gets a TS version for the 2025 model year. And in this video, I'll cover the exterior changes for the TS, the interior changes for it, as well as taking it for a drive and seeing what it's like out on the road and how it compares with the new hardware it gets for the TS version, as well as talking about the kind of fuel economy you can expect and also the pricing and how it compares to the competition. So as far as this TS version, well, if you're familiar with the Subaru WRX lineup over the past couple of years, this takes the 2024 TR version, which is no more, and then replaces it with this TS version. So you get the TR's wheels, you get the TR's Brembo brakes, which are now gold instead of red, but same brakes, same wheels, and then it adds in the adaptive dampers from the GT version, which is a much requested feature. I requested this back on the initial launch of the 2022 WRX. I said, I'd love to have the adaptive dampers from the GT with the manual transmission, since that GT unfortunately is automatic and a CVT only. So now we have the adaptive dampers with the manual. That's the main thing. Now there is of course unique tuning to go along with this. All of the drive modes have been retuned, and of course on the exterior here you do get some unique little flourishes as well. So you can see, even though we're in the fourth model year of the WRX here, there are no key design changes to the WRX just yet. Well, I don't know when we'll get those, if ever, but what we see here is for the TS version, you have the red WRX badge there in the grille. It's surprising it's not a TS badge there, but that's the way they decided to do that. And then otherwise, you do have the black mirror caps. There's the shark fin antenna. And then out back, you have that little spoiler you get on other versions of the higher trims of the WRX that is painted black. And of course, you have a TS badge there on the back. And that's about it as far as the exterior changes here. Otherwise, WRX, you know, still is WRX styling. You either love it or hate it. I still don't like the way the back end looks. That rear bumper is still just terrible to me, especially with brighter colors. Darker colors kind of hide it a little bit more, but I really wish Subaru would be able to find a little more paint in the factory to cover some of that rear bumper with some paint. But other than that, you know, I still think that it's a fine looking vehicle otherwise. And yeah, no changes here. Hopefully we get a refresh sometime here in the next couple of years. The interior of the WRX TS is very blue, as you can see. So that's the big thing, is you get the unique blue accents. It is based on a limited trim. So as far as all the amenities, you know, it has the Harman Kardon stereo, all those types of things as well. And it also carries over the Recaro seats that we get in the GT and also in the TR from last year. And that's my first complaint, is these seats. They are stiff. I complained about this in the TR and they're no better here in this. They're just really not super comfortable for long periods of driving. I don't like them at all. And my wife complained about them when we were driving around this all week as well. You know, I mean, they hold you in really well. So they're sporty seats. And again, if you're approaching this as a track car, they're great. But for daily livability, I much rather have the regular seats. And unfortunately, there's no option to opt out of these. You have to always have them. They also have the TS, you know, embroidery on them here and the blue accents and all that. But moving on, the steering wheel is all the same. For anyone who's unfamiliar with Subarus and WRX wheels, you know, it's just far too many buttons in my opinion. It's a little more cluttered than most other wheels out there that manage to do the same functions in a better way. But you know, it has a good 9.3 grip and a flat bottom, little 10 and 2 notches. The big news, other than the blue accents and the seats though for the TS version, is that it's the first WRX to get the 12.3 inch digital gauge cluster. And I'm not sure if this is exclusive to the TS or not. We don't have all the details still for regular 2025 WRXs yet. But you can see it here for the first time. It's a 12.3 inch display, and it's really nice and high resolution. And you know, I mean, I like the gauges, the way they're set up there. And you know, it does do the basic stuff on the left hand side, so it'll, you know, display a boost gauge, which is appreciated, you know, tire pressures, whatever you can have, you know, right there in that little widget. But there's no widget on the right hand side, and in the middle you can't change anything either, so it's very underutilized. Also, when you go into different drive modes, there is 0 changes to the cluster as well. It would have been fun for them to get a little creative. I know it's usually not something Subaru does a lot of with, you know, these systems. Usually they're, you know, a little less impressive digitally than a lot of the other competitors, but you know, just a lot of wasted space. You do have 3 different views though. You have the regular gauges, you do have a map view, which the nice thing is if you do use Apple CarPlay, it can display Google Maps in there or Apple Maps, you know, if you are using those. But you know, there's that view, and then there's one that's mostly blank and just shows your driver assistance stuff, which I think 0 people buying one of these will actually use. Maybe that'll be more usable in, you know, the other family vehicles that Subaru eventually puts this cluster in, most likely. But Yeah, just a little bit of a missed opportunity there, I think. And, you know, having to stare at an STI logo as well to remind you you're not in a real STI is also not ideal in my opinion. But it is tuned by STI. That's why they have the justification for that badge, as well as the start button here is an STI logo on it as well. And then coming over to the middle here, we unfortunately have this 11.6 inch touchscreen, which they've had since the 2020 model year in other Subarus, and I think by this point it is actually the slowest booting infotainment system in the industry, and honestly is my worst infotainment system experience I think this year. It's just not good. I mean, it does have Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. It's wireless for those, which is one perk I guess over some competitors that are trying to ditch that smartphone integration, but other than that, it's just not great. So, I mean, it's super slow to boot. And even, so this, what you're seeing here, this video I filmed is the second startup of the day. And, you know, it still is slow to even turn on the radio. I mean, extremely laggy. I'm doing no manipulation of the timeline here. You're seeing in real time how long it takes just to pull up like the radio screen there. It is bad. It's not just bad by like 2024, 2025 standards. It's bad by 2020 standards. It needed work whenever it came out, and it didn't get any improvements over all of these years, and we are still dealing with the same screen here, and it's just unacceptable here in basically 2025. So, yeah, that's the only thing. I mean, again, thankfully you can, you know, work it better once it's warmed up after a few minutes. But, you know, if you immediately want to, you know, change the climate controls or immediately change your heated seats or whatever, when you first hop in this in the morning, you can't do that. It's all just so laggy and infuriating every single time you get in this on a cold start, and just don't love that at all. I mean, you do have volume and tune knobs and a couple little buttons there to change your climate. So that's, you know, nice, but still just not great. And then otherwise, you know, a couple other strange exclusions, like there is still no heated steering wheel available. That's something that most of the competitors do offer these days. This does not. You would think, again, the Subaru being the one that's for wintry folks, would definitely, that'd be like the first priority for them, is put a heated wheel on this. We still don't have that even in this vehicle, which is likely around $45,000. You also have no wireless charging pad. That's another much requested feature according to consumer surveys across the industry. You also have, you know, so your regular 2 cup holders, another little slot here where you should have a diff controller if we were talking about an STI version, but unfortunately we have nothing there. And also the center armrest is just horribly positioned unless you get the dealer add-on armrest extension they've offered for the past 20 years. This is just far too low to actually be usable, and that's fine because it's also pretty hard once you get through this leather. It's actually not very comfortable to rest your elbow on either. So creature comforts in here are just not great. And so even though the materials might be a tiny bit better than like the GR Corolla, you know, it falls well short of, you know, it's like Civic Type R and anything else that this competes with, to be completely honest. And is just, yeah, even compared to GR Corolla, I'd rather have that over this from an interior standpoint as far as the niceties and the way things are set up. But anyway, moving on to the back seat, that is one thing that, you know, is an improvement over stuff like a GR Corolla and even like a Golf R, I'd say, with a little bit more of a bigger back seat. And as you can see, it fits a car seat really well. And I know, you know, a lot of people that buy these are parents, and so it does do that job better than I'd say a couple of the competitors. Still not the best out there though. For example, this trunk is still smaller than like the hatch you get in a Civic Type R or something like that. And even I think it's a smaller trunk than like an Elantra N. So practicality is certainly better than some, but not the best either. And you know, that back seat also like has no air vents or any creature comforts like that. I mean, there's power outlets and a fold down center armrest, but that's about it. Another creature comfort that's lacking is there's no sunroof available here in the TS. That's because they wanted to prioritize helmet room, which is great. But again, why doesn't Subaru offer options? Sure, a few people are going to buy these and take them to the track, and I know that's what this is designed for with the Brembos and all that, but surely there'll be some people that, you know, maybe either still are short enough to wear a helmet with a moonroof or whatever. It's just an option I wish they would offer, because instead, you know, again, you're paying top dollar and you're missing out on some features that you otherwise would get in another, you know, limited WRX. So that's about it. Other, you know, positives though, I love the Harman Kardon stereo. That is a very good sounding stereo, and visibility is also very good here. Nice large windshield, thin A-pillars, great view out of the sides and the back. So, you know, it's very airy in here. I do appreciate that about it, but yeah, I'm hoping maybe a refresh someday fixes some of these complaints here with the WRX. But let's start up and go for a drive. The TS here just has the regular Subaru key, nothing special, unfortunately. There's another area where a lot of the competitors give you a special key. No such accommodation here from Subaru, but of course it is keyless access, keyless entry, and push button start. So you just leave the key in your pocket, hit the STI start button, and it starts right up. And one other complaint that I have to say right on startup is the drone, and especially cold starting. The drone in this thing is deafening. It is horrible. And then if you start it up in a garage, I mean, that makes it even worse. But I mean, it is, I don't know how it ever passed the mustard from a OEM standpoint, because this exhaust gives you all the downsides of an aftermarket exhaust, the drone, which you even hear whenever you're driving, but none of the good sounds of an exhaust typically. I mean, it's just, you hear a lot of induction stuff, and you know, exhaust note is just not good. And I really wish that's another thing they would have fixed. It would have been a great opportunity here with the TS, since it's more advanced, to give you a more advanced exhaust system. That's something Subaru can't figure out, but Hyundai can give it to you on an Elantra N for $35,000 and adaptive dampers and all that. I'll get into that comparison later. But man, yeah, just start one of the, if you're considering one of these, just do a cold start in one at a dealership lot. And if that's okay to you, fine. But like, man, it's just not, between drone in your ears and a slow infotainment system, hopping in this vehicle every day immediately just like annoys me, unfortunately. But setting off here in the WRX TS. So one thing that is a positive for a change here with this vehicle in my experience is the adaptive dampers. Again, that's the big hardware improvement here of this, and it is pretty good. So I'd say that what you will notice immediately, it starts as standard in the sport mode. There is a comfort mode, a normal mode, and then a sport and a Sport Plus, as well as the individual mode that allows you to mix and match the settings of the various modes there. And even in the regular sport mode, to me, it is a ride quality improvement over a regular WRX. And so, you know, if you're willing to put up with all the other stuff of the TS and the higher price tag, you do get an improvement in ride quality in this, and you can get that improvement with the manual for the first time instead of having to be forced into the GT. So that is great, and so that is a win. I'm happy for it, absolutely. But what I've found, and I've read other reviews that say to the contrary, so definitely test drive one of these and see for yourself. But to me, it doesn't make a wild difference in ride quality between the different modes. Certainly Sport Plus mode is a little firmer than Comfort mode, but it still is a little firmer than I would like. You know, for example, the FK8 and even the FL5 Type Rs, when you have those in their Comfort mode, it is a magic carpet ride. It feels as smooth as a luxury car. And then, you know, it's rock hard in that Type R mode. You really feel those differences. This, there's not that big of a change, and even in comfort mode, it's a little stiffer than I would personally like. I still would like this to get even softer yet. I've never driven the GT. Supposedly they say the damper tuning on this is a little stiffer than GT, so they did that deliberately. And so I kind of just wish they would have ported over the same you know, modes as the GT, especially comfort mode. Like comfort mode, why are you stiffening up comfort mode? Like, it should just always be as comfortable as you can make the dampers as possible. That should be comfort mode, like all the way to the one direction. Sport mode should be all the way to the other. And then if you want to have variations in the middle, go for it. But, you know, it just seems weird they stiffened up comfort mode for the TS here, and continue to make it so that if you want to have, you know, the softest dampers, you have to go for the CVT GT version. But aside from that, you know, they do claim a bunch of improvements. I think you have like a 30% roll reduction. You have 55% reduction in various other, you know, metrics where, you know, it's flatter. It's going to be an improvement. Certainly will be an improvement on the track, be an improvement, you know, on the road. It is an improvement. That's undisputed. To me, I still think there could be a little bit more work to be done on the fine tuning. Now, there's hope that they could tweak that, you know, down in the future, you know, to make that a little bit softer even still. But, you know, I'm not going to complain too much because, again, it's still actually been pretty good this week. And so I am pretty happy with that comfort. But we're going to go ahead and put it up into the Sport Plus mode, which does give you the faster throttle response, heavier steering, a more lenient eyesight system so it doesn't nag you quite as much whenever you're trying to hit apexes and stuff. And that throttle response, it really kicks up quickly. But let's turn down onto this back road here and see how it does. And here we go. All right. And it accelerates very nicely. I'm smelling some clutch. I'm not sure why, because I am definitely just shifting normally here. But it didn't like that acceleration a little bit. I'm not sure what the deal is. Maybe this car has had a hard life. But anyway, so as far as the power here, it's all the same as it was before. 271 horsepower, 268 pound-feet of torque. 0 to 60 is about 5.5 seconds. Again, it's all the same. And, you know, it is what it is. This is a complaint we've had since the very beginning with this generation of WRX. It's fine, And it is, you know, a little bit more power than some of the lower end competitors, but it's just not enough power compared to most of the other competitors these days, especially at this vehicle's price tag. 45 grand buys you all the 300 plus horsepower competitors for the same money. I mean, you know, they're basically all the same price, and all those competitors offer more power than this does. And so they can't get away with this kind of power at this price point anymore. I'm sorry, but it's not enough. Yes, it's easy to tune, but you know, you're starting from a higher level with all the competitors, and you know, you can't just always rely on the aftermarket. You have to actually compete with your competition, and they're just not. And you know, this motor is just one simple tune by STI away from that power. I mean, it's not like they need to go crazy to upgrade everything in order to, you know, get the kind of power that people want out of these. It's just, you know, it's unfortunate because, you know, tuning is fine and all, but then, you know, you have to take your warranty in your own hands, and, you know, it just gets dicey. I want an actual manufacturer supported thing with over 300 horsepower. It's not hard to do. It's still so bewildering to me as far as why they decided not to do an STI for this generation. You know, there's nothing you can do aside from buy the competitors and send that message to Subaru. But in the meantime, you know, it still is fine. What I can say on the positive side is that the gearing is wonderful. It's so nice and short, and it really helps to maximize this powertrain. The downside of that, though, is the fact that the gearing is short and you shift a lot because this thing only redlines at 6,000 RPM. I mean, that is almost diesel low. And that's, again, just not sporty. That's not an enthusiast vehicle to have a redline of 6,000 RPMs. I complained about this again on the initial launch, but, you know, I'm still going to keep talking about it until it gets fixed because, you know, it really is just a buzzkill because you can't wring out this engine because there's nothing to wring out. It's, you know, you have 3 grand of power and you're done. I mean, even the older ones had a 6,500 RPM redline. But coming up some corners here, let's see how the TS handles. So this one, we are on Michelin Pilot Alpine tires. So they put snow tires on this, understandably so. You know, it's starting to get cold here in the Northeast, so understandable. But as a result, you know, I'm not going to be able to really test the handling limits of this thing. You know, it's definitely a little bit squishier here, and we've come up to some traffic, including, wow, a 300ZX. Look at that. Was not expecting to be talking about this, and we have caught up to traffic here, so I will do some more dynamic driving on the way back up this road. But anyway, so as far as, you know, the other stuff, though, like I said, you have the brakes from the TR last year. That means 13.4 inch rotors in the front on 6 piston calipers. You have 2 piston calipers in the rear on some 12.6 inch rotors, I believe. And so, you know, it's nice. Apparently these brakes are phenomenal on track. I've not tried them on track, but all the other reviews seem to be very impressed with their fade resistance and with just how, you know, well they do on track. So they're great, and if you are buying this as a track vehicle, you know, just know those brakes do seem to live up to the hype there, and it's great that you have those. Now, as far as whenever you buy one of these normally, you know, and you don't have snow tires on it, it's going to come with the Bridgestone S007s, which is an all, you know, just summer tire, high performance tire. It's still strange that Subaru does not offer an all-season tire on a car that made its name on being an all-season vehicle. Yeah, so immediately you have to budget for all-season or snow tires the second that you get one of these. But we're now in second gear here. It's telling me to stay alert for some reason. Accelerating out of a corner. And it grips very well. Obviously, again, tires are going to be the big difference here. But, you know, the all-wheel drive system is always very sure-footed. That's the whole perk of, you know, getting an all-wheel drive vehicle. It does put down power very well. And, you know, these kinds of conditions, it's a little bit wet here from rain earlier. You know, if we were in a Type R, a Launcher N, you know, anything like that, I mean, there'd be a lot more wheel spin and a lot more struggling here to put the power down. So, you know, clearly an advantage to the WRX, of course. That is, you know, one of the reasons why these sell as well as they do, is just the all-wheel drive that, you know, most competitors, you know, don't offer. But, you know, compared to, again, GR Corolla and even Golf R, you know, it's just less of a dynamic system. I do have brake-based torque vectoring here in this vehicle, so that will help you to, you know, have things be a little bit better. I'm not going to push it too much with these snow tires, but, you know, it's nice to have that torque vectoring, but you have like a real torque vectoring rear diff in the Golf R, and in the GR Corolla you have, you know, those front and rear diffs that both are working really hard for you, and that even has the adjustability of, you know, the little selector in the GR Corolla, just like the old STIs, to put that power where you want it manually. And that's why, to me, the GR Corolla is actually the spiritual successor to the STI that Subaru refuses to make. And to me, in spirit, with that car being a little more boosty in its nature as well, feels more like a WRX than this does these days, in my opinion. It's from what we know from, if you're someone who's grown up loving WRXs like I have, being known as a Super WRX fan myself, you know, that car still to me feels a lot more like an actual WRX than this does. But means this is, you know, still really fun though. I'm not, you know, here to knock it non-stop. I mean, again, I love the shifter. It's really nice and easy to rev match your downshifts, which I really appreciate, even though we don't have auto rev matching like we get in all the other manual competitors. All of them offer that, every single one. Another area where Subaru just refuses to compete. But otherwise, you know, so we'll go ahead and go, I'm gonna go back to my individual mode here, smooth up those dampers, and you do feel them soften up immediately a little bit. Again, it's not as good as Type R to me, but still is certainly nice. And I'd say the degree of variability is pretty close to what you get in a Elantra N as well. And so now we just cruise along, and you know, this is what I've been doing all week. I've just been driving around the family, you know, just going and living our lives, and this car is really good for that. It is, you know, really good at playing those dualities of, you know, being an awesome track car, being awesome on a back road, and then also, you know, being very comfortable for the family, aside from the complaints about the hard seats and the loud exhaust, you know, especially on startup and all that. But, you know, beyond those two things, and again, if you go for a regular WRX and maybe do an aftermarket exhaust that shockingly might be better executed than Subaru's, you know, I think you could really get along really nicely in one of these. So yeah, it's still been a fun thing to live with, is like the bottom line, even though, you know, it's easy to complain about. You know, it is still a very fun vehicle, certainly more fun than the average ho-hum, you know, family sedan. And it's, again, just, I'm very happy we do finally have the manual transmission paired with these adaptive dampers. And now out here on the highway in the WRX TS, again, those dampers in comfort mode, certainly it is nice. It is really great to have that ride quality improvement over a regular WRX. Obviously there's some road noise here, a little bit more today, especially because of the wet roads a little bit. But we do have the active driving assist here that Subaru has with the adaptive cruise control combined with the steering assist, and that was one of the big things for 2024, was adding in the adaptive cruise for manual transmission vehicles. Previously, I didn't get the automatic. That was something last year they introduced, but if you're, you know, didn't hear about that, it's really nice. You can now have adaptive cruise with the manual transmission. I've never had any kind of emergency scenarios as far as figuring out, you know, what it does if, you know, it can't provide the power it needs in sixth gear. I'm assuming it just, again, tells you to downshift and, you know, kills the engine if it needs to do an automatic stop or whatever. But, you know, as far as how it does out here, though, you know, I mean, it's really good. It's about as good as, you know, most of the other driver assist systems that give you the steering assist these days. It is still a hands-on system, of course, and as we come up to a gentle corner here on the highway, we'll see how it handles this. They do have a car right next to me, so I'm not going to let it get too close to the line there, but it's done a pretty good job. Subaru system in the past has been pretty good. It's not the best, but it's also, you know, I'd say pretty average, and pretty good though overall. And it does do those micro corrections for you, so if you're on a long highway road trip, this is certainly going to be a nice thing to have. And it's also nice that, you know, in the cluster here, it tells you when it's keeping track of the road lines, when it sees cars in front of you, when it sees people in your blind zone. That's all reflected there. We also do have a little tiny head-up warning where it gives you, you know, various notifications whenever it's either deactivating or telling you to keep your hands on the wheel. Even though my hands were on the wheel, it just told me, keep your hands on the wheel. They've been on the wheel the whole time. So, not the smartest system, not the best, but, you know, it's certainly a nice thing to have, and that is something that, you know, most of the competitors, though, do offer as well these days, so nothing unique to the Subaru here. Now, as far as other safety tech, since this is, again, loaded up with these TSs, again, being based on a limited, that means you have everything as standard. Automatic emergency braking is standard, even on a base WRX, you know, but blind spot monitoring, all those things, which I think blind spot monitoring is still potentially an option. We don't have all the details for 2025. I believe 24 blind spot was still something to go up to premium for, but again, on these top trims, that's all thrown in here. And for those of you who are a little bit more focused on safety, safety, it's also worth noting this car does perform very well in the IHS crash testing as well. So that is, notable that, some of the competitors, they might not be top notch, and this is. And so that is, one really nice thing here for this too. If you are someone, especially if you have a family, you're worried about that, crash performance as well. This, of course, it does very, very well. It's a Subaru. Most of them do very well, but in particular, the WRX does score very highly in most of those tests. But the last thing to really mention here is the fuel economy and then the pricing and how it compares to the competition. So as far as fuel economy goes, they haven't officially confirmed fuel economy for 2025 WRXs just yet. I'm not sure why, because mechanically everything's all the same, so it should be the same. But I have to put the disclaimer, this might not be final fuel economy because I don't have that officially. But last year they rated 19 mpg in the city, 26 on the highway, and 22 combined for the manuals here. And I had a TR over the summer, and in that I managed to get about 22 mpg. This week I'm at 20.8, so basically 21. And I was doing a good bit of highway driving, but I'd say a slight majority of it was probably around town, lower speed kind of driving, just suburban back roads and stuff. And so it's fine. Again, the all-wheel drive is really what you're paying a penalty for, because, a lot of people observe much higher fuel economy in the front-wheel drive competitors, and even the all-wheel drive stuff. I think GR Corolla, I was getting better fuel economy than this as well, but it is what it is. It's all-wheel drive, it's a manual and all that. But just because it's a four-cylinder, don't think you're getting great fuel economy, And then the last thing to mention is the pricing and how it compares to the competition. And again, I also don't officially have pricing here because these are not going on sale until the first quarter of 2025. And 45 grand buys you a lot of car, especially in this segment. And that is, again, the biggest problem. I've said this for years with the WRX. Ever since they came out, I always thought the higher trims were hard to justify from a price standpoint. I think WRX is great at the base price, still right around, again, we don't have 2025 pricing yet, but around $32,000 to $33,000, great value, absolutely recommended. Even premium, you want the moonroof, you want the stereo, okay, fine. You want to pay $35,000, $36,000, fine, that's okay. At that point, I still would argue I'd rather have an Elantra N, but those I can understand, especially if you must have all-wheel drive, especially paired with a manual, fine, that makes sense. Once you get to the 40 grand limiteds, and again, TR was almost 45 already, and then this being 45, it just doesn't make sense. Again, you got to read the room, and Subaru doesn't, unfortunately. The room is saying you can get a 40 grand GR Corolla with more horsepower, with the adjustable diff, with the same great all-wheel drive system. Yeah, the screen's a little smaller, but I argue it's actually a better experience because it's less laggy than this bigger screen. I'd rather have less screen size and have it be a good experience. So to me, it's an easy decision. All day, every day, I'd rather have GR Corolla. And then even if you want to load up a top GR Corolla, those are still only like 46.5, which may be around where this comes out after destination and stuff anyway. And at that price tag, you get like the chopped carbon roof in the GR Corolla, you get a heated steering wheel, you get a wireless charging pad. Again, you get a little bit less space in that vehicle, so it all comes down to priorities and personal preference. But the amount of stuff you get, even in GR Corolla, it's just all day, every day. I'd rather have that. It has the, auto rev hashing on the downshifts. It's the specialness also of a GR model and actually being a dedicated performance version instead of just a, slightly tuned version of a regular vehicle. And so, yeah, for me, it's an easy decision. I would all day, every day take a GR Corolla over this, no question about it. Now, as far as the other competitors to this, it's also 45 grand is right around the price tag for a manual Volkswagen Golf R. And if you're watching this here, in late 2024, early 2025, and you hurry, you can get a manual one. Auto Trader was showing a few hundred manual Golf Rs sitting around, currently new ones at dealers, and that puts you again, right at like under 46 grand, I think, for those. Now, if you go for the DSG version, that is going to be about 47, and going into 2025 and beyond here, they are going to be only DSG, so that will be a point where, again, this will have the unique advantage of having the manual. But the DSG, it's a little annoying with the way it's tuned these days. It really is set up for hypermiling, but if you're in sport mode or manual shifting, it's very fun, very dynamic still. And I'd rather have a Golf R for that same money too. Those give you cooled seats, leather, moonroof, you know, all these creature comforts that you don't get here in this. You know, it gives you, it feels luxurious for that price tag. Because 45 grand is luxury territory, and those feel luxurious. This does not. And even Civic Type R is, you know, 46 grand. Now there, of course, you're going down to front wheel drive, but that has metal knobs and just feels so much more premium inside. And again, more space in that too. And, you know, I'd rather have the Type R as well. And, you know, even if we are open to front wheel drive, Elantra N is really the best value still in this segment. I've said it again this past summer when I reviewed the refresh version. It's just still the best value. $35,000 with a manual. Gives you adaptive dampers, gives you active exhaust, gives you 276 horsepower. You know, technically 5 more horsepower than even this. You know, you get a really smart front limit slip differential in those. And again, it just comes down to whether can you live with you know, front wheel drive or not. But if you can, I mean, Elantra N has those really stout brakes. It's set up for track driving. I've tracked it before. It's a phenomenal track vehicle, and can stand up to that abuse just as well as I think this could. And again, $35,000 all day, every day. 10 grand less, and you get a better sounding vehicle, adaptive dampers, all the same stuff. 10 grand less, same power. I mean, this is what Subaru's working against here, and it just, you know, I don't know how they make the decisions they make there, but I have no clue, you know, how anyone would pick this over that unless you must have all-wheel drive or have something against Hyundai. Those are the only 2 reasons I can see for going for this over that. And so, you know, that's really the bottom line as far as this vehicle. In a vacuum, it's okay. You know, they made some nice improvements here. If you're a Subaru diehard and you don't ever consider, you know, what other companies offer, it's a nice improvement. Knock yourself out. But for anyone that wants to do any kind of cross shopping whatsoever, I can't recommend it. It's just not competitive, and it just gets worse with these higher trim versions. And, you know, it adds insult to injury that, you know, we still have, you know, way down on power compared to all of those, and just less dynamic. And, you know, I mean, they keep selling WRXs, and I think a lot of them are those base and those premiums where, again, I see the case, it makes sense, you know, and it'd be a consideration for me. Even if I needed all-wheel drive and I wanted to stick with a manual, absolutely a base or a premium, very tempting, appealing cars. You know, this interior is passable whenever you're talking about low 30,000s, but at 45, forget it. It's just, I'm sorry, but it's not competitive. So anyway, I won't keep repeating myself, but that's all of my thoughts here on the WRX TS. Let me know your thoughts on it in the comments below. Big thanks to Subaru for providing me here with this vehicle to review for you guys today. Let me know your thoughts on the WRX TS in the comments below. Please leave a like and subscribe to keep these videos coming, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Take care.